Hello and welcome to Analysis with me, John Rees. Two militant attacks on Karachi airport in as many days have left approximately 40 people dead. Both the Pakistani Taliban and the Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan have claimed responsibility for the first attack. There have been protests against the attacks demanding that the Pakistani security services do more to combat the perpetrators. Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif and the Pakistani Army's chief have both held meetings to review security. The United States has offered to help Pakistan investigate the attacks. The attackers claim that they were responding to fighter jet attacks on their bases, and the US has now resumed drone attacks against militants. So what can we expect next? Well, joining me to discuss the issues are Hamad Ali, a freelance journalist who specialises in Pakistan and the region, Mirza Ali Shah, a journalist at GeoTV, Ibrahim Mir, UK representative of the Pakistan People's Party. Welcome to you all. But first, let's take a look at this report.
Pakistani children held a vigil yesterday to remember the victims of the recent terror attacks on Karachi airport. Around 40 people were killed after gunmen wearing military uniforms stormed the airport on Sunday. It was the biggest attack on Pakistan's security apparatus to date and is a stark reminder that the country still faces threats from militant groups. The group Islamic Movement for Uzbekistan has so far claimed responsibility for Sunday's attack, and photos show that 10 gunmen wearing black turbans and brandishing AK-47s were posted online. The insurgent group originally set to overthrow Uzbekistan's president, Islam Karimov, and has previously carried out attacks with the Taliban, including one on Peshawar airport in 2012. But other militant groups have also claimed responsibility. Shortly after the attack, the Pakistani Taliban publicly claimed responsibility, stating that they sought revenge for US drone attacks, which killed a leading Taliban figure, Haqmullah Masood. In its fractured state, the Pakistani Taliban had agreed to cooperate with the government in April, but these attacks suggest that any form of peace will be unlikely in the future. Pakistanis voiced their concerns about the state of security in the country and called on the army to guarantee safety. And in Multan, dozens of protesters took to the streets, carrying banners condemning both the United States and its arch-rival, India. Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif led a high-level meeting in Islamabad this week to review the security situation, and Pakistani's Army Chief, General Raheel Sharif, also presided over a meeting of military commanders to discuss Pakistan's response to the attacks. The US, meanwhile, resumed drone attacks with 2 strikes in northern Waziristan overnight, with reports indicating that at least 16 suspected militants were killed during these strikes. While Pakistani authorities are still investigating what happened last week, many fear that this will not be the end of violence in the country, especially as American troops prepare to leave neighbouring Afghanistan this year. And in the wake of recent events in Iraq and Syria, many Pakistanis believe that they're on the cusp of returning to Taliban rule. Hussein Kizvani, Islam Channel.
So Hamad, not so long ago we were hearing that the Pakistan Taliban was divided, that it was not the force that it was. Doesn't look that way now, though.
What was happening was that they were having peace talks for the past few months. The government has been engaged in dialogue with the Taliban to try and bring an end to, and for a period it did look like it was going to end, but obviously the Taliban threat is still there. I think bigger concern is that the proper kind of security infrastructure didn't seem to be there, to deal with this kind of militancy, and it kind of also is kind of a blowback for the peace talks, because you can't have talks with Taliban through a kind of position of, you need to talk through a position of strength. You can't talk when you're having talks at airports and stuff. So the threat is still there, and it's not just the Taliban. It's the attack on the Karachi airport has international implications, as you can see with the CIA drone attack, with Uzbek militants also claiming responsibility. So we have to look at, I think, a much bigger picture now in this case.
Mirza, there's one story here, which is that these attacks have ended the peace process. They're the beginning of the conflict. There's another story coming out of the people who did it who say, no, there were fighter jet attacks on their bases, and this is a response to that. Which of these is true?
Well, I mean, there are conflicting reports. Pakistan military has been taking an aim at the militants for for the last few weeks, but there have been sporadic attacks, there have been no coordinated attacks, and there have been just attacks here and there on their hideouts. But what has the Karachi airport attack shown, and the resultant attack, and then the killing of almost over 24 Shias in Quetta in a suicide bombing? I mean, this really poses a very serious challenge, not for the civilian government, but also for the military also, because Pakistani civilian government for the last few months have been very much keen to hold dialogue with the Taliban, to bring them on the negotiation tables and to end the conflict. And as and when it started, I mean, there was definitely a reduction in the attacks. But, the very audacious attacks that they launched in Karachi airport, I mean, which is the commercial hub of Pakistan, after that, from within the government, I mean, there is huge opposition to talks now. And I mean, if people are now saying that if that is what the terrorists have in their mind, this, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and their offshoots and their, affiliated militants, that they are going to strike at, such sensitive spots which are so crucial to Pakistan, then obviously, I mean, there is a public opinion that the militants should be taken on. And that is what the people have said it for a long time, that if there is going to be a military offensive, it should be really robust and it should deal with the militants with an iron hand. That it should be the case.
Ibrahim, is the involvement of an Uzbek element in this, is that new, or has that been there for a while?
Thanks, John. Before I replying your question, let me say a few words as a Pakistani, that they are scratching their wounds, Taliban or terrorists, whosoever is there, and they are weakened. That's why they are trying to get support from outside, like Uzbek. They have claimed that they are with them. Now, especially your question, particularly at the moment, government, the civilian government, they are on a weaker page. But as a nation, we will support them to combat these terrorists. There are elements, international elements were always there. It's not first time, but we cannot blame India or any other country, because third party, third country, or any hidden powers, they can take undue advantage. It always happens. Anything happens, we blame India, India blame Pakistan. But in this case, we shouldn't be, because if you take few incidents like from GHQ 2009, then Kamra base, then naval headquarters, these big incidents, we were going down. But as a nation, we are up, always up. We had number of floods, earthquakes, these kinds of things. And plus, as you very rightly mentioned, America, they're going out from Afghanistan. So it always happens when you go into somewhere or you're going out from somewhere, it happens, earthquakes politically or socially or economically, it happens. Why Karachi? Murtaza very rightly said, it's an economical hub. That's why from KPK, they moved to Karachi, because it's economical hub and they are trying to, cripple our economy. That's their agenda. But when government started negotiation with Taliban, or terrorists, I should say, not Taliban, there are TTP and others as well. Because this particular government, those who are running the country, they always been to the rightist side. PPP or ANP or MQM, they were leftist. Middle leftist, right leftist, whatever, but they were not, with Taliban. But this government, especially, they are grooming TTP in even Punjab, but they are turning a blind eye. So that's their dilemma. They want to do something, but they cannot, because they are having their support.
Well, let me ask Murtaza about that, because you were saying there's a kind of public mood that the security services should really take them on this time. But I mean, the Pakistani security services have long had a relationship with the Taliban, have long used them for their own foreign policy purposes. Is it realistic to expect that they're going to do that? No, or are we going to see a kind of, a theatre of opposition rather than real measures?
Yeah, I mean, we have to be really realistic and be very much, self-critical here. And that is the fact, it is very easy to say that as a nation we are up and all that. It is good as a slogan. But the fact of the matter is that Pakistani nation right now is in a bad state. A country which, fails to counter such kind of attacks, there is really is a need to really rethink, revisit a whole, broad range of policies, including security policies and, the regional policies as well. I mean, when your country's general headquarters is attacked, it looks like that no place is safe in Pakistan. And it's not that under this government that has been the case for the last few years. Since, the intervention in Afghanistan, Pakistan's problems have only gone up. And it looks like the Pakistan problems are going to actually exacerbate, especially with the presence of, foreign forces in Afghanistan and the blowback of whatever is happening in Afghanistan. It is, being felt in Pakistan on a daily basis. Now, coming to your question, yes, it's true that Pakistan, establishment has relationship with the militant groups, but there are, two dimensions to it. There are groups which have, the direct or indirect support of Pakistani establishment, but there is a very large and influential element within, striking inside Pakistan, which has foreign support. There is no denying that bases in Afghanistan have been used to attack Pakistan. The intervention of Western countries in Afghanistan has actually really made the whole militant problem and the problem of terrorism, it has worsened it. And
well, let me just ask Hamad about that, because that point that maybe it's not legitimate to blame India, but it is legitimate to blame the war on terror and what happened in Afghanistan. This is a problem in Pakistan that didn't exist in anything like this manner before that conflict, isn't it?
Yeah, like my colleague is here saying, that this is it's a kind of regional trend. If you look over the past 12 months. This is not the only case of an international airport being attacked, but this is the most high-profile case. There was an attack in Kabul airport. I think there's been more than one airport attack over there, which was launched by Taliban, and then there was an attack in Baghdad airport. There was an attack on Tripoli airport. So you see all these countries where there's been history of external interference, and so there's a kind of power vacuum in these countries, and so the governments are not really doing their job, and you have a rise in militancy. And same thing we are seeing here in Pakistan, where you see the government is there, but it's kind of weak, and there's also a schism between the Pakistani government and the military. And so they've spent a lot of efforts over the past couple of months. Rather than dealing with the security issues, there's been, kind of war with media houses, between the military, between the and the government, and so there's a lack of focus, there's a lack of unity, and this is what is causing, which is, and also the point about Afghanistan, there's a porous border, like my colleague was saying, and so there is movement between militants coming from Afghanistan into Pakistan, or from Pakistan going into, on both sides, and that's also causing problems.
So, Ibrahim, do you think that this is going to be the beginning of an intensification of the campaign by the Taliban, and given that there's some drawdown, we shouldn't exaggerate it, but there is some drawdown of US troops on the Afghani side of the border, is that likely to exacerbate the situation in Pakistan?
First thing is, allied forces or United Nations or maybe USA or UK, whenever something happens, they, advise Pakistan to do this and do that and do more, whatever, but they don't come to protect us. That's our, complaint, and which is obvious. And if they don't come to, help us, because on its own, Pakistan cannot do like this. It's only not you're, facing terrorist dilemma. There are a number of insurgencies in Balochistan, KPK, and even Punjab, Sindh, everywhere. So we have to have some international support, right?
What do you think that would look like? Because if you look at what happened when international support went to Afghanistan or Iraq, maybe you're lucky not to get it.
The thing is, it's not like they should come, they should send their forces. International platform, they should be supporting us, right? Wherever they're talking, they should be supporting Pakistan rather than criticizing. And we are on the victim side. We are not, terrorist nation. As Murtaza said, nation is not up. I think nation is up. That's why our country is there. We can have a weaker government, weaker than this, but our nation is there. Our nationalist, people are there. from my point of view, as a political worker or as a Pakistani or as a political worker of PPP, the main thing is our atomic bomb. Shahid Bhutto, he was the creator of that thing, and no, it's not like, I'm not naming any country, but there are forces, they are trying to go into that either through our economy, either through terrorists, either through whatever, drone attacks, whichever, but their target is our atomic bomb. But no, they are building up something that it's unsecured.
Well, do you buy that? Do you agree with that?
Well, I believe that any solution to Pakistan's problem, mainly its security problem, the solution has to come from within. As previously mentioned, that the current government, I mean, it has really lacked focus in last, at least in over a year. Same was the case with the previous government. It's not only this government which is to be blamed. Now this government has to really sit down with Pakistan's military, formulate a national strategy of how to deal with the issue of terrorism. I mean, this is one issue which is literally tearing the whole country apart. It happens every day. When you have your bodies lying all over the streets, when your own people are being killed, whether from the militants from within or outside. The fact is there is a very serious problem. It must be dealt with. So far, I mean, there has been lack of coordination. There has not been a composed a response to the threat of militancy. I mean, there have been very, different kinds of opinions and, which have muddied the debate and the water about it. But the fact is that now it has become incumbent upon, the military and the civilian establishment to come on one page and once and for all formulate a policy and deal with all kinds of militants very effectively so that this very issue of terrorism is rooted out.
Yeah, John, I was halfway through. As Mr. Ahmed said, the media houses, that's a problem because Mr. Mirza said the previous government. I think previous government, they delivered like in Swat. They talked to them, Sufi Muhammad, they gave them a chance, but a proper chance, not let them to take undue advantage. But here, what is the case? This government is, giving them, liberty and letting them having an undue advantage. So there is a big gap is coming between military, our establishment, and the civilian establishment. This thing, and on top of that, the media houses are divided. No, our nation is divided because media. I'm always supporter of media, but some media people. I'm not saying the media houses, some media people, they are taking undue advantage. They are going beyond their limits. So that is the more, main thing, because if media is not there, no politician, no social, community, nothing can, can be spoken on media. But 3-4 things. One is the media.
Let me just come out about that. Do you think that's true? The media to blame part of this?
I think you can blame the media in the sense that, for example, when this Karachi attack happened, you had some TV channels broadcasting live. They were showing, okay, here, this is where the security troops are battling. And so you're giving out your positions to the enemy, to the Taliban fighters. And so there was quite, and they were criticized for that. But also before that, there's been this kind of tug of war between the media.
So why wasn't that stopped? I mean, that's what journalists do. They get to the scene of an event and they report it. And unless somebody says otherwise, why should they not?
No, what I meant is if you're telling them positions, or if you're like, there was one case of, I think there was a cameraman and he was putting on lights, and there was kind of bringing attention towards your kind of.
So I mean, if they're sort of in the middle of a gunfight,
yeah.
What on earth are the security forces doing, not keeping them out of it? For their own safety, apart from anything else.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the problems is that the media isn't properly regulated in Pakistan, and the discussion that's been happening is more about kind of, there's also a tug of war between the military and the government, which is reflected in the kind of wars that are being fought between the media houses.
Well, so what do you make of this? Was the meeting, I mean, the kind of description that Hamad's just given there, you're almost expecting a makeup person to come on and, powder up the face of the people doing the fighting.
That is actually a side issue here, because the thing is, like, that is yes, exactly, it happened, but it happens like, in many cases where, for example, media sometimes intervenes in such operations. But, coming to the original debate, which is about dealing with the threat of terrorism, if the government decides actually to go on and take action against the militants, media is not going to stop them. Media has never stopped them from taking action against militants. The problem is there are a broad range of sectarian militant groups which have been mushroomed within Pakistan. And I mean, it is fine that, Nawaz Sharif had said that he is going to first give militants a chance. He said that we will first start with dialogue, with peace efforts. If the talks fail, then we will go for the military operation. In between, there have been random strikes. But now that it is clear that all the talks effort, they have failed. I mean, even making an effort to revive the whole talks process, it will be a futile exercise. Now, I mean, the time has come when the next steps have to be decided about the military action. But well, a military action is going to take place. But what really needs to happen is that there has to be a definite policy on how broad it is going to be and what its aims are going to be.
I mean, bro, can that military option work on one side of a border which people can barely find, never let police? I mean, isn't it true that as long as the Taliban bases exist in Afghanistan, this question can't be closed in Pakistan?
Basically, sometimes, we are asking too much from our military, because if you know that somebody is coming from the border, you can fight with them. But if the people are inside among you, then it's very difficult, nominate or mention them, because they are similar like us. And it's very difficult, to fight insurgency, within the 2-3 provinces.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop you just there because we're moving to the break. I hope you've been fascinated by this description of what's been going on in Pakistan and over the border in Afghanistan. We'll be looking at the broader international implications in part 2 of the programme after the break. Do rejoin us.